Hello. Sasakay kami ng barko. Mga ka-channel, sasakay po kami ng barko. Sasakay kami ng barko dito sa Canal. Ay, ito.
We're going to look outside.
Yeah.
It's better to go outside.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Biggest challenge. Right? Once
Ay,
again,
espérate.
which language? English?
English,
English.
yes. Español.
Oh, Español.
So, tranquilo.
Yeah. Okay.
Slowly, despacito.
Okay. Sí.
Voy a ponerle modo.
I know it from the song. But, I mean, is it possible you go down first?
Yeah, okay.
And I will take the boat close.
Okay.
Then it will help her.
Madulas siya ka.
No.
Alright, coming.
Okay.
Excuse me, one question.
Yeah.
Have the Copenhagen card.
Yes, you go to the office, get the ticket.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Just sign the life insurance.
Gracias.
Life insurance. Because of this. Don't forget.
Life insurance.
It's better on the back. Because here is our door.
Yeah, thank you. Ay, no, sí. Yeah, wow. Dito sa barko, kami ay mamamasyal dito sa Copenhagen. You know, sightseeing trip. Dito tayo galing.
Ela ontem estava a dizer que a filha não deixa de passar a escovar também.
È bagnato.
They are wonderful, beautiful, incredible captain is named Arash. So, guys, first rule to board, please sit down, especially when I ask you to at the bridges, because we don't want you to stand up and hit your head on the bridges. There's always somebody who has to take one last picture 2 seconds before they get a bridge in the head, and you don't want to be that person. Also, don't stand up at the bridges because if Arash by mistake goes into one of the sides, you could fall down and hurt yourself. So please just sit down at the bridges at least. Good. Now, over here on the left we have a very special church. It's the only church in all of Denmark directly on the water. And that's because it's a sailor's church. It's also the church where our queen got baptized in 1940 and married in 1967. Showing you how important sailors are here in Denmark. On the right, you can see a building with a spiral tower, spiral roof, you could say. This was the first shopping center of Denmark. It was built so people would not have to get wet when they were buying and selling stuff outside. As you may have noticed, it rained a lot today, and in Denmark it always rains a lot. Then it became the stock exchange, this building, and finally now it's a place for business meetings. As you can see, there are these dragons on the roof, one of the most characteristic let's say views of Copenhagen, sights of Copenhagen. And the dragons are there because back in the day fires used to be a huge problem here in Copenhagen. So people believe what I will tell you right after the bridge, so please remain seated. People believe that if you put dragons on a building, it meant that the building could not burn. Now, this might sound a little bit silly, but to be fair, the building right next to the old stock exchange has burned twice and has no dragons, while the stock exchange with the dragons has never ever burned. So, the dragons might actually work. Coming up, over here on the right we have the kayak bar. The kayak bar has a great offer. you can rent a kayak totally for free for 2 hours. All you have to do in return is pick up any trash you see in the canals. And that's a great initiative, because that way we can keep the canals of Copenhagen the cleanest of any city in the world, which is what we have right now. Now we're coming to the next bridge, so please remain seated. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, coming up in a few moments, you'll be able to see a big white building with a red roof. In front there's a blue turquoise boat, ship. This building is kind of peculiar, kind of strange. When you look at the front of the building, it looks one way, but once you pass it, you might be able to notice that it's a little bit different. I'll hope to guide you through it. So, as you can see in the front, there's this blue boat. Looks very nice. Some nice cars parked out in front, 2 flags, the Danish and the Ukrainian. The building has some beautiful windows, beautiful doors, everything looks good so far. Even the side of the building looks good. Beautiful windows, a beautiful door. And then we pass it. Oh. Wah, wah, wah. So, why does that building look like that? Well, you see, once upon a time, there lived a king in the tallest town of Copenhagen, the tallest tower of Copenhagen, and he demanded everything he saw from the tower has to be beautiful. If it was not, he would cut the head off the architect. The problem was he was a cheapskate who did not want to give enough money to the architect. So this very smart bridge is very popular because bicycles are very popular here in Denmark. There are a few reasons for it. First of all, a new car in Denmark costs 100,000 euros. Second of all, it's also because Denmark is a very flat country. To give you an example, our second highest point is called the Mountain of Heaven. And it's 147 meters high, 450 feet. So not really a mountain of heaven, to be fair. And that's why we actually have 2 bicycles per person here in Denmark, because it's easy to get around in a flat and small country, and our streets have not been made for cars. The reason it's called the kissing bridge is that normally the 2 sides of a bridge go up and down, but this being an electrical and new bridge, the 2 sides of a bridge go back and forth, and so they meet in a kiss, so to speak. And so we have a little tradition here at summer, but when we sail under the bridge, if you feel like it, you can give each other a little kiss. And it's so nice when people do it. It's really beautiful skiing. But if there's one thing you should know about us Danish people, it is we will never, ever admit defeat to Sweden or Norway. So, on one side of the hill of Amager, there is a climbing wall, so you can climb up, and then you can actually ski down on the roof, because the roof is a ski slope. So, take that Sweden, take that Norway, Denmark wins once again. So, another great sight we have here on the right is this black submarine over there. That black submarine is called the Seal. That animal. And the Seal is the last submarine used by the Danish Navy. It was used in 2003 during the Iraq War, and it had the task of making sure that no weapons were imported into Iraq. So the American military asked Denmark for help. And what did we do? We sent a submarine to a desert war. Way to go, guys. Yes, as I said, now it's no longer in use, but if you're interested in seeing a submarine from the inside and maybe have a museum visit at the same time, that's possible, because they have rebuilt this submarine into a museum. Over here, on the left, you can see a big white houseboat, and this is the houseboat of the evil X-Factor judge here in Denmark, Thomas Blackman. So you know there's always an evil X-Factor judge, yeah? Simon Cowell or whatever. The evil one we have here in Denmark is the most rude person in all of the country, and he lives on that boat. Over here, we have this very big boat, called Copenhagen Denmark. Bakken Bruce, and that is the houseboat of the man who designed the Danish Opera House, which we saw before. Over here, on the right, you can see a big gray battleship with the writing F352. Now, this battleship was used during the Cold War. However, here in Denmark, it's much more infamous for something that happened in 1982. They were doing a training exercise on that ship, and the captain made a very small mistake. He pushed the wrong button, and he launched a missile, a rocket from the ship, and it went straight into an area of vacation homes, summer houses, summer cottages, and it totally destroyed a hundred of these. Luckily, during winter, there was nobody there, nobody got hurt, but unfortunately we cannot get any closer because the water is very shallow today, the water is very low today. So, but yeah, there she is. Now, I know it might not be the best angle, but to be fair, nobody else is seeing her this way, so it's a very unique experience you're getting. The other day I had a lady who really complained a lot, like, oh, all the money in Denmark. So Denmark and Sweden were fighting always over who has the right to this money. Just to give you an example, in 200 years we had 11 wars. You can imagine the devastation to both sides. So in the beginning it went well for Christian, but then it started going bad, and it started going badly. Later I'll explain to you why he lost, but he lost a lot of wars. And so Christian was desperate to get some money. His idea was to invite the Dutch. At the time, Holland had a lot of money and a similar mentality kind of similar to that of the Scandinavians. They had made a fortune selling tulip flowers. Back in the day, it was a luxury good, and one single tulip flower could be worth hundreds of euros. So talk about flower power. So Christian's idea was to make the Canal of Christian, the harbor of Christian, so it sort of like resembles the canals you have in Amsterdam, because that way maybe the Dutch would feel more at home, he thought. It was a good idea, but unfortunately it didn't work. They only sent poor peasants. So he became increasingly desperate. He tried a lot of stuff with this part of the city. In the end, he gave up and said to the Danish rich people, listen, come to Christianshavn, invest some money, and I will give you a free apartment and tax exemption for the next 12 years. You will not have to pay taxes. And suddenly hundreds of people stormed to this area of the city and wanted to live here. Now, when we get here, I will ask you to sit down at the bridge coming up. There's a bridge coming up. Please sit down. Please sit down.
Sit down, sit down.
Thank you. I will ask you to sit down at the bridge, and I will tell you when you can take a beautiful picture of the church coming up on the left. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to questions about Denmark, people, whatever. Most commonly asked questions about this area is how deep is water, or needed, increase in the winter, almost never. The people live on the boats. How do the boats get out? Because the bridge goes up. What is that new brown thing over there? That's the church I was talking about, and I'll tell you about it later. If you have any other questions about Denmark or Danish people, I would be more than happy to answer in just a few moments. Thank you. Listen, my company has a lot of spies, and if they see that you're standing up, and then they will fire me. Okay? So please just sit down. No, it's not now. But when I tell you at the bridge, just please sit down.
Please speak with
It's okay. It's okay. It's just very important.
They told me after.
Any questions? Do you have any questions?
No.
Nowadays it's a lot cleaner, and you can get a nice ice cream, you can get a cold beer, or you can try the traditional Danish dish, called snabel or smorgasbord, which you should definitely try while you're here in Denmark. Over on the right, we have what is known as the Paper Island. The Paper Island is not officially a Dutch island from 1695. And it has its name because back in the day this was Danish newspapers used to store all of their paper. As you can see, they are now building what I call the Danish pyramids. These are private apartments. And when I first got a job on this boat, I was an optimist. So I called my banker and I asked him if I could buy one of those apartments. And he said, no, keep sleeping on the boat with the captain because these apartments cost 5 million euros. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Arash, we're going to be sleeping here once again tonight. All of these apartments have been bought. I didn't know we had that many rich people here in Denmark. There are like 1,000 people in total, so I don't even know how it's possible. Anyways, moving on. Over on the left, we have the Danish Opera House. And the Danish Opera House was built in 2005. It was a donation from a company called AP Møller Mærsk, whom I'll tell you about later. Inside of this very impressive opera house, you have more than 1,000 rooms and you have 14 floors. 5 of these floors are actually underground, meaning under the water. Personally, I would love to listen to songs from The Little Mermaid under the water. As you can see, you also have a pretty big roof. And apparently, this roof is so big that you could fit an entire soccer stadium and an entire football stadium up on the roof. Personally, I'm not a big soccer guy, but if they were playing on the roof and they could fall down and die, it would be much more exciting and I would definitely watch it every single week, that is for sure. Moving on. So, now we are in what used to be a military area, but in recent times, last 100 years or so, this has become a very cultural place, let's say. It has a design school, it has a school for actors and all of this stuff. And yeah, so this place is pretty popping right now, which is also why we have a lot of Danish musicians living around these parts. And even though I have to listen to their songs all day long in the radio, they have said they don't want to listen to the guides coming through. So unfortunately now I will have to shut up. But please sit down, there's Rich. Please. Thank you. Yes, I will give you a break for 5 minutes and then we'll pick right back up with a very interesting story about how Denmark lost their entire fleet.
Everything's good? All good?
Yeah, I'm hungry.
What? You're hungry? I don't even have lunch, I'm sorry.
Okay, the channel. Yeah. Oh shit, it's too high.
Yeah, it's too high.
Oh.
When we come to some of the later bridges, you'll have to sit down because now it's been done.
Look. Ay, tingnan nyo ito. Oh, ayan o. Ayan. Ganda ah. Ano, kamusta naman mo yung ito? Enjoy ang ginawa. Oo. Papi. Hindi natin sa mga simpatiko tao. Sono mga piyon na ano.
Guarda che belle anche queste case, tutte vetrate.
Hindi nga.
Strane, però belle, guarda quella lì ad angolo.
over here on the left, you can see what used to be the old torpedo halls. This is where we used to repair the torpedo boats during the Cold War. Now it's very fashionable apartments, but as you can see, when once we sail by, it's actually possible to still sail inside, kind of. And when you look inside, try to imagine a body falling from the stairs up there. It looks like the perfect place for one of these very serious Scandinavian crime noir TV shows that are extremely popular at the moment, yeah? You see the body falling from up there. Oh! Yeah. They're very serious, these series. They are very dark. And there have died way more people in those TV shows than have ever died here in Denmark, that is for sure. Now, much more exciting is the very small cannon boat sheds over here on the left. You might be wondering, why are they there? Now, I'll tell you a story. So, around 200 years ago, there was a guy called Napoleon. I'm sure you've heard of him. Small guy, huge ego, he was French. And he was at war with the English. And the English were very afraid that he would get the support from the Danish Navy, the Danish fleet, which at the time was the third biggest in the world. So the English told Denmark, don't do any deals with this Napoleon guy or we will have to punish you. And Denmark said, yeah, sure, and then they kept doing it anyway. So the English got mad. Now, back in the day, there was a certain time during the spring where you would start to build the big ship, because they would tear them apart during the winter because they took too much space and they would get rotten in the water and so on and so forth. So you would start rebuilding them during the spring when you knew all of the ice had melted. The only problem was the English had Lord Nelson. Now, aside from Arash and Captain Jack Sparrow, Lord Nelson is the best captain that ever sailed the 7 seas. So he knew before the Danish that all of the ice had melted. So what did he do? He came to Denmark and he stole every single one of our battleships. Yes. And so all we was left with was very small rowboats. And poor Danes, they would put cannons on these rowboats and put them into these very small cannon boat ships. And so that is the extremely embarrassing story of how Lord Nelson reduced the third biggest fleet in the world to nothing but rowboats. Now, these small cannon boat ships are offices. It actually ended really badly, and there was a big fight between the Danish and the English, resulting in what they call the first terrorist bombing of civilians when the English burned down most of Copenhagen in an attack with firebombs, and it was a great disaster here in Denmark. Obviously, a lot of people died. Anyways, moving on to more jolly themes. Over here on the right you have a lot of trees and a lot of grass. This is Town Christiania, where everybody was happy all the time, because Christiania was a military area invaded by hippies in the 70s. And the hippies have created their own village there, their own society, their own community. They are around 1,000 inhabitants, and they have their own kindergarten, their own bike shop where they make the Christiania bikes, which are bikes with a box in front of them so you can transport your children or you can transport goods, because cars are not allowed over there in Christiania. And they also have their own trash management system, and most famously of all, in Christiania they have the hippie cigarettes, or the Snoop Dogg cigarettes for the younger people. Now, these Snoop Dogg cigarettes are illegal here in Denmark, but they are extremely popular. Just to give you an example, the ATM machine, the money machine they have near Christiania, is the most used money machine, not just in Copenhagen, not just in Denmark, but in all 5 countries of Scandinavia. That's how much people like to go to Christiania and try out the hippie lifestyle. Now, obviously, none of you are going to do something illegal here in Denmark, but I would still recommend that you go visit Christiania, because it is unique. There is no place like Christiania in the whole world. However, there are 2 rules to follow. Never run, because when people are running in Christiania, it means the police are coming. So if he manages to make it all the way through and turn the boat around, I think we should give him an applause. But let's see if he manages to do it first. I'll tell you when he's done, because he has to turn it around too. Now, he almost made it through already, but will he be able to turn the boat around? This is the true happiness test. Don't worry, Arash, you can do this. Everybody here believes in you. Arash has no time for my stupid jokes. Now, what you should know is that when you do a maneuver like this, it is incredibly important to have total silence and complete focus. But unfortunately for Arash, I have ADHD, so it's never ever gonna happen. I don't know when to shut up, meaning that I'm putting even more pressure on him, making this whole thing even more exciting. Ooh. Nice and slowly, nice and easy, easy going. Almost there, almost there, almost. Yes, you can do this, Arash. Almost. And he did it! I love my okay, so coming up over here on the right we have the oldest museum in all of Denmark. Built in 1848. This is the museum of Thorvaldsen. Thorvaldsen is the best sculptor that ever lived here in Denmark and one of the best that Europe has ever had. He was so good, he got into the Danish Royal School of Art and opened 4 years ago. And as you can see, this building has a very weird shape. The reason for this is that it's supposed to look like Legos. Lego is a Danish toy invented in 1934, and so what it symbolizes is that all of the Danish architects built their very first buildings with Legos when they were children, and I think it's a very cute idea for building design. Now we're coming to the next bridge, so everybody mind your heads, please. Thank you. Now, a little bonus information that you and a lot of Danish don't know about Lego. The word Lego is actually a conjunction or a combination of 2 Danish words, like, which means play well, play nice, or play good. Now, we're coming to the next page. Over on the right, we have a red building. This red building is the brewery of Christian IV. This brewery was very important because when it was built in 1618, we had no sewer systems here in Denmark. That brought 2 problems with it. First of all, with no sewers, it means you have no toilets. So people would empty their parties out of the window, Copenhagen, and the smell would get so bad in the summer that the king built his own castle outside of the city where he would go on his summer vacation to get away from the stinking people. Much more seriously though, when you don't have any sewers, it also means you have no clean drinking water, and that's of course a big problem. But Danish being Danish found out that when you produce beer, you actually kill all of the dangerous bacteria in the water, meaning it was healthier to drink beer than it was to drink water. So from this brewery, they would give out 10 liters, 2.2 gallons of beer a day to every single state employee, and they would give the same amount to every single Danish soldier every day. And this explains why we lost so many wars against Sweden during the reign of Christian IV. Now we're going to the next bridge. Okay, so over on the left, you can't see it unfortunately, but a few hundred meters that way, we have Tivoli. Tivoli is the most popular amusement park in Denmark. The architects have wanted to build it for years and years and years, but the king would never give them permission. Finally, in 1843, the king was very afraid because the Danish people wanted democracy, and so he agreed to let Tivoli build, because he thought that maybe if the Danish people got Tivoli, they would have so much fun that they did not want democracy. What he forgot to think about was the fact that only people living in Copenhagen could go to Tivoli. But you know, so the plan didn't work, and just 6 years after, we got our first Danish constitution in 1849 and effectively got democracy. However, Tivoli is a very popular